And now, marine weather around Alaska. Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Saturday, July 5th, 2025. Starting out with the state of the sea ice here across the far north, the Chukchi Sea continues to open, especially along the coastal areas around the Lisburn Peninsula and extending along the Beaufort Sea coast. With these warm temperatures that have been in place, this has certainly accelerated the ice melt along the coastline. The only caveat is we have a stronger cold front that's going to come in from the north off the Beaufort Sea and cool things down here as we go through Monday and Tuesday. So instead of these really warm to hot temperatures in the 70s and 80s, even up near 90 in some areas along the south slopes of the Brooks Range, that's going to get knocked down significantly as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So looking at the weather map starting out late tonight, early Sunday morning, weak low pressure entering Shelikof Strait, south end of Kodiak Island with this occluded front. Generally, small craft conditions associated with this feature, along with areas of rain and rain showers that will spread along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle for Sunday and lingering into Monday. As we get into Sunday afternoon, you'll see that low just kind of sitting there in the same location with this front just kind of washing out. But again, it's going to spread more rain and rain showers into the Panhandle and all along the Gulf Coast. There's another little secondary impulse that'll come northeastward that could enhance the rain over the southern Panhandle Monday into Tuesday. We're watching another low pass south of the Aleutian chain Sunday. That will continue eastward. Meanwhile, there's that cold front starting to show up the Arctic Ocean, and then for Monday afternoon, evening, that front will have dropped south across the spine of the Brooks Range, and that may even have a little bit of rain, cold rain and wet snow mixed here along the eastern parts of the Brooks Range on Tuesday. So as we go into Monday afternoon, a little impulse rotating up through Haida Gwaii could enhance some of the rain showers over the southern Panhandle, and then lingering showers continue all along the Gulf Coast. We'll also see some areas of showers across the southeast mainland and along the Alaska Range, so somewhat active pattern there in the south. Winds for Sunday across the inner channels will be southeasterly 15 to 20 knots, waves 3-4 feet, Lynn Canal, Stevens Passage, Clarence straight down into Dixon Entrance. Off of the outer coast there, nearshore waters within 15 miles, south winds 20 knots, waves 6 feet off of Craig, Sitka, turning southeast to easterly, increasing 25 to 30 knots off of Cape Suckling, where waves may build upwards of 7 to 9 feet. Monday winds will come down a bit, at least in the northern central Panhandle. Southeast winds 10 knots, waves running maybe upwards of a couple of feet, Lynn Canal, Stevens Passage, but still southeasterly 25 knots, Dixon Entrance, up there into Metlakatla with waves 4 or 5 feet. For the outer coast, Sitka southward, we're looking at winds out of the south, 10 to 15 knots, waves 5-6 feet. Those winds southeasterly and then easterly at 15 knots as you round out outside of Yakutat Bay and Cape Suckling. Now for the northwestern Gulf, strongest winds lower Cook Inlet will come tonight, Saturday night, but by Sunday they should come back down southeast to east winds 15 to 20 knots. We may have winds of 25 knots from Kayak Island to outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance with waves 7-8 feet. East winds to 20 knots within that wider expanse of Prince William Sound. 3-4 foot waves there. And then northeast winds upper and middle Cook Inlet at 15 knots and waves 3-4 feet. And then for Monday, variable winds outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance to Kayak Island and off the Kenai coast to northeast of Kodiak Island. Keep waves down a bit there. Easterly winds 10 knots within Prince William Sound, waves a foot or two. And then coming up through Cook Inlet, winds will generally be south-southwest 15 to 20 knots with waves of 3 to 4 feet. On Sunday, Kodiak Island will see variable winds around 10 knots as we have that low just kind of sitting in this position. Backside of it, north wind out of Bristol Bay at 10 knots, turning westerly 15 knots as you trail out down along the Alaska Peninsula with waves a couple of feet. Then Monday, generally widespread variable winds only around 10 knots from Kodiak Island down along the length of the Alaska Peninsula. Waves maybe a couple of feet along the North Pacific side and a foot or two along the Bering side. For the eastern Aleutians, variable winds at 10 knots around Unalaska, southeast to east 15 to 20 knots across Nikolsky through Adak and Continuing further out, not a whole lot of change there either. And then for Monday, winds will generally be easterly across the eastern Aleutians. They will pick up, though. Look for east to northeast winds, 25 to 30 knots, especially Nikolsky through Atka, because there is going to be that low passing just south of this area. Backside of it, northerly winds west of Adak, and then falling off to variable at just 10 knots between Kiska and Shemya. For the southwest coast, Pribilov Sunday, variable winds 10 knots around St. Paul, St. George, but northeast winds 15 knots out of Bristol Bay, north winds out of Kuskokwim Bay at 10 knots. Further up the coast, look for a westerly component to the wind along the lower Yukon coast at 15 knots, turning more northwesterly in that wider expanse of Norton Sound with waves maybe 2-3 feet. And then on Monday, as some of that colder air begins to push southward, we're looking at northwest winds, Norton Sound, lower Yukon coast, 10 to 15 knots, waves 3 feet. Still west or southwest winds into Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays at around 15 knots, and then generally northwest winds 15 to 20 knots from the Pribilovs up to St. Matthew. And for the far north, for the west side of the Seward Peninsula and the north side of St. Lawrence Island, winds are going to become northerly on Sunday, increasing to 25 knots with waves building to 4 feet. Lower Chukchi north-northwest winds, 20-25 knots into Kotzebue Sound. Those winds do fall off along Point Lay Wainwright to maybe 5-10 knots from the north, and then generally look for northwest to west winds, Prudhoe Bay to Kaktovik. Now, on Monday, in the wake of this front, some of the greater push of the cooler air through the Bering Strait, so that's where we find the stronger winds, but in the wake of it, winds Monday will be shifting northeast to north 10 to 15 knots from Kaktovik to Utqiagvik, but as we drop down along the Chukchi coastline, look for north-northwest winds picking up 20 to 25 knots, and then passing through the Bering Strait, we look for north-northwest winds around 20-25 knots. Off of Wales, Port Clarence, and on the north side of St. Lawrence at Gamble and Sabunga. And overall, we're looking for waves of 5-6 feet within the lower Chukchi Sea and 4 to 5 feet south of the Bering Strait on Monday.